Are we ready, Mrs. Rip?
Oh, okay. Oh,
We're live.
I'm like, oh, is this your
Are we?
brother and you?
How's that? Is that better? There we go. Please make sure your microphones are on and close enough for everyone to hear.
Don't be sad.
It's 6:04. We are here to workshop. I don't have my list.
Mary, do you want me to give these to everybody?
Fuck, you're crazy.
Thank you.
They were the HR committee.
That's me.
Yeah,
That's Matt.
that you guys talked about.
Okay, thank you.
All right, policy 2017-XX to amend ordinance number 1391 personnel policy. Workshop for City Council is Monday, October 16, 2017. Do we need to take a roll for workshop? What? No? Oh, I thought I heard something.
I said yes, but.
Oh, okay. Can you take the roll, please?
Councilmember Heffernan,
Present.
Councilmember McCall,
Here.
Councilmember Chapman,
Here.
Councilmember Hubbard,
Here.
Councilmember Fredericks,
Here.
Councilmember Jacobs.
Here.
And everyone is here and accounted for. And I think I'm going to kick this over to Mr. Boyce. All right, go ahead.
Thank you. So, what we're here to discuss is the HR Committee's recommendation to City Council. They requested a work session or workshop on exempt employee salary policy and step plan. So, what I'd like to do is, first of all, go through the policy that was recommended, and then get into the salary grids and talk about some of the costs of implementation if City Council so chooses. So if you turn to page 2, or page 2 of the packet, which is the start of the policy, the classifications. When the HR committee started looking at this, it was, I believe, back in 2012. I know when Mayor Finn came on, he also wanted something that showed uniformity, consistency, competitiveness for recruitment, and issues with compression related to union contracts paid for looking at the exempt salary grid and policy. So as you can see in the policy, it talks about the scope. Policy applies to city employees not represented by a union. Policy itself, because our time is limited, I'm going to get to the meat of it. If you turn to the last page of the policy, items 1 through 3 listed there. The heart of the recommendation from the HR committee is effective January 1st, 2018, exempt personnel will be placed on the newly revised step plan as shown in Exhibit A. We'll get to that in a moment. Placement will be at the step that affords an increase to the current 2017 salary as of 12/31/2017. Item 2, the effective January 1st, 2019, and each year thereafter, the pay ranges will be increased by 100% increase in the U.S. Department of Labor's Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners and clerical workers, Seattle area, or national index, whichever is lesser, for the period of the previous July through July. And the reason they're talking about the Seattle Price Index is that the Portland CPIU is going away. Item 3, thereafter the city will conduct a market study analysis using the above method on a biannual basis and adjust the range to maintain compensation at or near the market average for comparable work. So moving forward, that will be the idea. When we talk about the market study analysis, at the top of that page, it talks about how the city would use a 50% weighted average between the Association of Washington Cities Salary and Benefit Survey The committee used the 2016 survey, those were the most current numbers at the time. So that's, the AWC survey is based mostly on population, so looking at the range of 2,500 to 7,499, and 50% weighted average of local area cities, including Battleground, Castle Rock, Chehalis, Kalama, Kelso, La Center, and Ridgefield. So that's the policy that's being recommended. Turning to the salary grids, you see one that's X'd out. That was a first draft that we decided not to go with. The second salary grid shows what's built into the budget today. So in the proposed budget for 2018, the salary grid has been amended to based on the 50% weighted average between the AWC salary study and the local jurisdictions. Two things have been done to the salary grid that should be noted. First of all, the dollar amounts for salaries were amended based on that salary study. Secondly, the HR committee decided to take step 9 and move it back to step 5. The idea behind that, as I understand it, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, is that a number of our newer hirings were done at close to the top of the salary grid. We didn't receive as many applications as we had liked during some of the recruitments. So the intent was there's room for those positions to attract qualified applicants, and once those applicants are hired, some room to move. So with that, the question should come up, what does it cost? Compared to the current rates where we are now, this option that's currently in the preliminary budget for 2018, the increase in salary would be $23,316. The increase in benefits would be $5,107, and leaving a total increase of $28,423.
What was the number again?
$28,423.
That's for all of these increases?
Yes. Now, when the study was done, it should be noted that two salaries came out as competitive and not needing adjustments, and that was my salary, the city administrator's salary, and the deputy clerk treasurer's salary. Also, another item you should note is the public works director salary is associated with the largest increase based on the comparables. As you know, we have a new public works director who was here at our first meeting. And just recently signed a contract, but the comparables show what's on the sheet there. So with that, I'd like to open it up for questions, or if Councilmember Humbert has anything to add.
We've worked on this for a very long time, and this seemed like the fairest way to make this all happen, and we went over it a couple of times before we were ready to present it tonight.
Is there any type of a grid here that shows me, I've got what you're going to increase it to, but I don't have anything showing me what it currently is that's side by side. I have to go through 5 pages to do that comp, and that's really, I mean, it's all back over here, but is it underneath of here?
I can make a photocopy of the current wage grid for you. I should have had that, I apologize. Karen, do you want to run into the police department?
Yes, it's current, but there's nothing showing what the steps.
Well,
If that-
Yeah,
But,
so if you look at
It's
the,
not showing what is suggested.
if you look at
Steps.
that salary grid that's in the packet, the far left-hand salary, or column, next to the, point it out here, this column right here, so the one highlighted in yellow,
Okay,
that's where employees currently are on the 2017 salary grid. Mayor?
Yes. Mr. Fredericks.
I understand that there's some talking points that have been created for the members of the committee. Can we also get a copy of those talking points and also ensure that those talking points be added into the record?
Sure.
Do you have a copy of those now, Mr. Fredericks?
I do not.
Okay.
No, this is the current 2017.
Do you have a copy of this? Of the talking points?
no.
I can run and make some copies real quick, so Councilor can...
Not unless it's in here, in what I got.
Do you need these right now?
I'm gonna copy these ones.
You've got... What's that, I'm sorry?
She's going to make copies.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Did you
I'll
have
do that to
anything
look over there. Let me see the back one. Perfect.
It would also be my request that if and when this comes back to us for consideration, that these talking points be added into that record as well, so they're actually on the agenda and into the record.
Great.
Okay. Do you have anything else, Mr. Fredericks? Or-
yeah.
Oh, okay. Who, I'll just open it up. Do you want to, who wants to start? Okay. Ms. McCall.
Me start? Okay, first of all, I was on the HR committee for several years, I think 6 out of my 11, might be more than that. And I'll go ahead and fess up that I'm probably one of the reasons that this hasn't moved forward. In the previous proposals that have come forward, it's usually onesie-twosies of one person or another person or 2 different department heads at a time, and it's just, it's not the way that I wanted to do things. So to start off, I'll say something positive, that this policy has been a long time coming. I don't believe that this policy has ever been looked at, this actual document that we have in front of us this evening, that is trying to level the field and say, this is what Woodland does to determine salaries. We've gone by what's in our HR manual, but we haven't said, okay, we as a council say this is how we are going to determine these salaries. And so I think that the committee, and then I'm assuming that probably this came from you, Mr. Boyce, initiating the policy piece of it. I'm not certain.
Well, I think Mayor Finn and the HR committee themselves had it started before I got here.
We've been working on it for a while.
I'd ask that it started in January of 2016 is when I
Okay.
started.
And
redoing that.
so this is definitely an improvement to have a baseline and a statement from the council, this is what we agree with. There's things in here that I don't agree with, though, and sticking points of things that I have had issues with. One of them is the comparable cities. First is the range of population from 2,500 to 7,500. There is a significant difference in what those department heads do for a city of 2,500 versus a city of 7,500. And I realize you're trying to get an average and get a median there, but the jobs aren't comparable. The number of people served and the complexity of the city are completely different between 2,500 and 7,500. Another issue that I have is that none of the benefits are comped on this. We went through that exercise at one point in time where I asked for it, and I did receive it at the HR committee, but it was never brought forward to the full council. I had to bring it forward to the full council. It seems like there's some sort of reticence to have that number out. And my issue of why it needs to be comped is some cities have 3 weeks paid vacation to begin with. Some cities only have 2. Some of our benefits may or may not be significantly higher or significantly lower, to be fair. Some of them might not be as high as some of the other cities. And so that needs to be compared, because it's multiple thousands of dollars per person on what those benefits are. The other issue that I have with the cities is I think that a couple of these cities, and the significant ones that stand out are La Center, Ridgefield, and Battleground. La Center's salaries have been inflated for years because they have a slush fund, and they have, before this casino opened, and they basically had a flat rate of over $100,000 for every single department head that worked for the city, and it was flat. Everybody was equal. I know that they are currently discussing dropping some of those salaries because they're having to make some cuts with what the issues that they're having with ALNA going in. And so there's going to be some changes there. With Battleground and Ridgefield, some of the jobs, when you're trying to take them and go side by side, are not equal. The responsibilities are not equal. The educational requirements for those jobs are not equal. And to just go ahead and like put it all in a hopper, some people are going to be benefited more, some people are going to get shafted more. I don't think it's, I personally don't think that this averaging system with these cities as the comps is going to be to the benefit of the employees or to the city or to the citizens. And I think I had one other note. The other piece of concern that I have is that I would not agree to do this, and I'll vote against doing this, if we have not done an organizational assessment first for our main operations base. I've asked for that through 2 mayors for 8 years, and been denied that for 8 years. Our city has more than tripled in size. Our base operations, we're still doing our payroll with a spreadsheet system. There's things that need to be done to fix that before we pour money into salaries, because we're going to need that money to potentially buy software or systems or outsource. And like I said, I've been the sticking point. I'll go ahead and fess up to it. I've been the sticking point on this because there's things I want done and things that I want improved, and they haven't happened. The things I've asked for haven't happened. And I would also disagree with the gap between clerk treasurer and deputy clerk treasurer, because our clerk treasurer has gotten raises twice, with the deputy clerk treasurer not getting raises. And it was voted on. I was here when it happened. And that's happened in the last 10 years. I'm not talking about the last 2 years. And it's increased the gap between the two. It was closer. There was only a small amount of difference between the 2 jobs, and that gap has widened.
Well, I think that's one of the things we're trying to address by having comparables, but you know, there is definitely room for debate about what cities to compare it to, job match, things like that. So
But again, I will commend the committee and the mayor and yourself and whoever else has worked on this policy. We've needed this for a long time, of saying this is how we're going to do it, rather and have it be a standardized process. So I will sandwich it with a positive comment after all of my things that I have issues with.
Thank you. Mr. Jacobs.
So for me, I've sat on, this is my 3rd budget and 3rd time going through this on HR committee. And I've been frustrated every year because it feels like we try to come up with a way to give one or two people a raise, or everyone raises. We also have cost of living every year. And to be frankly honest, I've always been a little upset because as a citizen, that's not available. You don't get raises and cost of living, so it's frustrating to ask taxpayers to do that. So what Mary and Mr. Boyce haven't shown is the comparables. Actually, I think they did a really good job of, not necessarily on the cities, but if they take the time to show it, they went by job description. So even though we may call it clerk treasurer, and another city may call it clerk treasurer, they do have different jobs they do, and they did a really good job of putting those together to come up with the actual pay structure. So maybe we can show that. When we were originally looking at this, I saw that there was multiple people up towards step 9, and we were hiring people at step 9, or even 8. And what scared me there is, and I'll take the police chief for example, we hired someone, I think it was the right hire by the way, but we hired someone who didn't have experience and then put him at a top level. And I think what that does is he works here for 2 years. He's still at a top level with no raises, but now he has experience to be able to move on to another city and make more money. And I didn't want to see that happen. And honestly, I was seeing it happen over and over with multiple hires. That was part of why I wanted to see that range looked at or moved down so we could bring in someone at a level 3, be competitive, and give them a reason to stay here. I don't, even though we've talked about it a couple times, I don't necessarily 100% agree with where all the ranges landed. My thought was if you were at a 9, you'd move into that 5 range, and that didn't quite happen. So I think maybe we can show and talk a little more about salaries, but I'm completely behind doing this policy just because I think it gives employees a reason to stay here and be happy without sitting down every single year and talking about raises and feel like we're going in front of citizens and asking for more and more money. Now it's out there, it's shown, we can explain why, and I think it's a good policy even though maybe there's some number tweaking.
Mr. Fredericks.
Well, I appreciate the work that the committee's done because I do believe there is merit in addressing the STEP system to create some upward mobility for staff. And I think that that's certainly a positive thing that's attempting to be done here. Can you talk, one of the questions I have is about contract disparity. I would say most of our employment contracts state they reference a personnel policy, and then there's a few words that say, or as amended at a later time. Can you tell me if we have any staff that is currently on a separate contract that is getting separate benefits?
All of the contracts are under the current personnel policy.
Okay. So we're on a level playing field as far as the amount of time you can accrue?
Right, with the understanding that the current personnel policy does have a 2-tier accrual for vacation benefits.
Right.
So anyone hired, and I think I printed that out. So anyone hired before October 19th, 2015, there's one accrual schedule for vacation. Employees hired after that date, there's a separate accrual. But it's all under the current personnel policy.
Okay. I would like to, well, let me go to section 2 here, or your bullet point 2 or number 2, where it talks about the CPI. I'm a little concerned tying it to the CPI, specifically for a year where you have an anomaly or a high CPI year where you're maybe double-digit CPI rate, and your revenues don't match your CPI rate. That to me is setting the city up for, hey, here's your 15% raise because that's what CPI says for that specific year, but I guarantee you our revenue is not going to be there to match that rate. What is built in, because it doesn't appear to have anything built in, as a stopgap to address that type of issue?
Well, I'm not sure there is anything at this point. But I understand what you're saying because, for instance, this year, the CPI-U for Portland was 4.2%. And implementing something like this on top of a 4.2% COLA, those numbers are quite higher than what we're looking at now. So I think it would be a very reasonable amendment to have some way the mayor or, you know, whoever you'd want to identify, be able to have some say over whether that COLA is implemented fully or partially or not at all.
Okay. I'm on the same wavelength here as Councilmember McCall on this, so many of the things that she raised, I'm right there with her. I would like to have some more visibility to how qualifications were matched going through this process. What was looked at, how you came to this understanding of, well, this is where this individual is at based upon the comparable in the city. I too share the issue with La Center. I know that's, I'm not sure that that's the best city to be using right now. Maybe in the future when they get back to reality, that might be a good one to use. I'm also, we had an organizational assessment that was approved by this body in the previous administration that was not adopted. It was approved by council on a unanimous vote, and there was never a formal process to veto that request. It was just refused to be acted upon in doing an organizational assessment. It was indicated at the time that he would direct staff to refuse to work with the individual doing the organizational assessment. I think the Prothman report indicated that an organizational assessment might be something that should be looked at within that department. I'm also interested in seeing the total benefits. What are we, I mean, there is definitely a benefit to the benefits, and I think that there needs to be some visibility surrounding those benefits. I'm also very concerned with how we address the substantial increase in year one, effective January 1 of the Public Works Director, who's receiving a roughly $10,000 a year raise. This is a contract that was just negotiated. And so I would like the committee to really look at how we address that type of issue right out of the gate. I mean, I think the amount of money that's being increased here is roughly comparable to a cost of living adjustment on an annual basis for many of these, with the exception of the Public Works Director. So I'd be interested if we could clean up some of this language and address that high dollar amount in year one, then I may be able to come around. But as it stands currently with what is in front of us, and I want to clarify one thing. Did the HR committee pass a vote with a due pass recommendation to the full council? Because this indicates that the HR committee recommended approval. Was there ever a motion, a second, and a motion to refer this to the council as it has been?
I believe that the action of the committee was to ask for a workshop.
Okay.
Is that right?
Yes.
So this-
We wanted to be able to present this to the full council with so we had everybody's input. We got started. It took us a long time to get to where we are. No, it's not perfect, and wanted everyone's input before we did a due pass.
I just want to make sure that the language is cleaned up, and if it's not truly an approval out of the committee for recommendation, that it not be listed as such. That's the only thing I'm suggesting.
Yep, understood. Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Also, for the record, I just wanted to state that the new Public Works Director had no knowledge of what the committee was doing and what the recommendations would be, and it was just based on the comparables that were set out.
Yep.
All right, Mr. Jacobs?
To be completely honest on that, I didn't understand that one. I think I even brought it up tonight. I thought it was what the last Public Works Director was making and what the new one was. I didn't realize that that was a raise there, because I would have brought that up 2 meetings ago.
So the issue really is with that particular salary is that the negotiated salary is no longer even on the grid. So step one is that salary we'd be putting the director on. So that's,
And I agree with,
Yeah.
I do agree with talking point number 4 on here, which is ensuring that we're not talking about people specifically, that we're talking about the position. So it's nothing personal, it's the position, so.
it's just what the numbers
Right.
came up as.
Yep.
Mrs. Heffernan?
Thank you for all the work that went into this. I know I was on HR committee a couple years ago, we were talking about it then, and so I do appreciate that this finally has come to an actual policy in front of us with numbers and things to back it up, that we're actually at this point. I share some concerns that have already been expressed. I don't want to belabor by saying those again. I just want to add one concern that I have is that we are going to the voters and asking for funding because we claim that there's none in the budget for police. And then to tell them, but we did find funding to raise salaries for other people. That's not I'm not making any judgment whether it's that those raises should be given or not. It's just a fact that we claim that there was no funds, but we can find them for this. We're going to hear about that, and I don't know how we're going to justify that.
That's one of the toughest part of putting together a budget is determining priorities. And, you know, the HR committee brought up a number of points that are important with recruiting and retaining personnel and being equal. But the police department is another important issue that, you know, we're talking public safety and, yeah, so those are definitely competing interests.
So this, I'm assuming that the funds for this, and that's $28,000 per year? That's what we're talking, 28 for 23?
Correct.
That's per year, and that is coming from where?
That has, well, it's part of the general fund appropriation, so it's coming out of all the revenues coming into the general fund. You know, we don't parse out where every expense comes from, but you know, there were some enhancements we didn't fund that maybe could have been funded with this. We did some transfers from the capital 301, the capital reserve fund. So there are numerous places where it came from, but overall, you know, looking at all the expenditures in total, we had to cut it back to fit the revenue that was available. Unfortunately, there's not an easy answer. It came right from this one spot.
Yes, I didn't really have a question. I just wanted to express that concern, which I'm sure that others have already thought.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? That amount is already built in.
Yes.
The amount that is in this change in the ordinance is already budgeted in the preliminary budget that was provided to council already.
That's correct. So if city council decided not to go with it, you could reduce that amount from the budget. Yeah, so.
Well, the only thing I guess that I would add, and I do share some of that concern, but I think that I get a little concerned because something needs to be done. You pay $20,000, $30,000 to go hire someone to find you an individual. How many times do you have to do that before you realize that, you know, maybe you need to be at a better point on your scale? Because the amount of time and effort and energy in going through the process of hiring someone and the amount of money that we pay to go through that process, that's not zero. There's a cost involved with that, and it typically comes either right out of that department, right out of the general fund, or right out of general reserves, if it's depending on what time of year it is. So, I understand that. I just think we need to be mindful, if we're starting people at step 9, then it doesn't really provide any upward mobility in their role, other than the cost of living adjustments that come into play on an annual basis. So I think people need to be mindful of that. There's a cost associated with having to replace an employee.
Which is exactly
It's
why
not free.
we work so hard at trying to get the step plan set back and be more intuitive for people to stay, so that they want to stay. They don't just get their experience. They're now at step 9, they don't get anything, so they go to the next town. We've done that a lot lately, so we work really hard on trying to do something here. And I understand taking it to the voters, I get that. But somewhere it's going to hurt at some point. Doesn't matter when we do it or how we do it, it's going to hurt.
So the thought I just occurred to me talking about, turnover. Do we have any information, these comparable cities, what their turnover rates are? They're paying their people more. Are they having lower turnover rates, or is it? Are we guaranteed that paying more will actually keep people, or is there another reason people might be leaving?
I don't think there's a guarantee.
Well, I know that I'm not looking for a guarantee. I'm just wondering, are these other cities that we're using, are they having similar issues with people leaving, or do they have better retention rates?
And I don't know the answer to that question. We'd have to make some calls and.
Only from what I've
responses.
read and from what I know, Mary Lee, you can probably address this one better than I, because you're more familiar with Clark County than I, but it seems like I don't hear about the amount of people moving around like they have lately here. That doesn't mean that's a true fact. That's just my perception.
Ms. McCall?
To give a very frank answer to that question, the movement that happens is, in my opinion, directly related to the stability of the council and the leadership. When you have a strong council that is working together and you have a stable working environment, you have people that stay longer. When you have discord and conflict within the council, and you don't have clear policies and you don't have clear directives, then public servants will move to another place that does have clear policies and a little bit more stability. And that's the way that it is. We have not had a stability on our council or stability in our leadership for a while. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've had people that have left. If we're going to be completely honest and about what's been going on. I had one other question.
So has that been addressed?
Here?
Yeah, I mean, if you're saying that is an issue, is that still an issue? Or is that something that has been addressed or is being addressed?
I don't know that it can be addressed because we're all elected officials. So the stability with the council and the mayor's office is really determined and driven by those seeking.
Be addressed on November
And there'll be
7th.
another dynamic in another
change
couple of
again.
months.
I just can't imagine that no other city deals with the dynamics of different personalities, and every 2 years changes and
No,
that
they do.
such too. So,
Question? I'm going to start going over this list real quick to make sure that we got everything to bring back to council while you think about that, if that's okay.
Okay.
Okay. 2 members of council are looking for benefits comprehensive package and want to see the number, total benefit package overall, is that correct? Is that a 3? 3 council members are asking for that?
Is there a 4th council member that's interested in seeing that?
Sure.
Okay. We got, all right. Cost of living, and let's see here. Sounds like organizational assessment was passed by this body but never followed through on. So we'll need to pull some information on that. That was before my time. And Mr. Jacobs, cost of living versus step increases, can you, Mr. Boyce, are you clear on what he's asking for?
I really wasn't asking
Okay.
anything there. No, what I was,
I don't want to leave the information just hanging out there if there's a
no,
question.
when we originally talked before we changed this, there was,
Okay.
we discussed, like we always do, cost of living, I think, in upwards of 4% this year, along with also adjusting salaries to meet comps. So there was some very large increases. We still have one now on this, but there was multiple very large increases that I was really uncomfortable with the way we were looking at doing it before looking into this policy.
Okay, okay. CPI versus the revenue and building something into the policy that addresses an automatic versus not an automatic is the way I'm reading what some members of our council are suggesting.
Are you referring to section 2?
Yes.
Just the,
Right.
what if you've got an 8 or 9% increase in the CPI and your
Okay.
revenue is going up 1%?
Okay,
To write a stopgap
Or-
into that.
Okay.
Part of the policy.
okay. Do I have 4 council members that are looking for that as well?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. It was mentioned that qualifications and the method used to determine qualifications against other cities. Does that sound right? How we arrived at the grid that we are now with qualifications?
Yeah.
Okay. Do I hear 4?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Yes?
I think that's all available now.
Yeah, it's
It's all available, okay,
Yeah.
it just needs to be furnished?
Yes.
Okay.
So I believe we have that, so it should just be in our packet.
Okay, and then I think that Mrs. Heffernan's comments about going to the voters for funding now, but being able to find monies, I think that's probably more of a conversation for council to have versus City Hall. Not that I'm discounting your comment. I don't know that I can address that one.
No, you can't, it was just a comment.
I understand, okay. And then turnover rates from comparable cities and the retention rate?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd be interested.
Okay, do I have 4 on that one as well?
Sure.
Did you just kick me, Carl? Sorry. Jeez.
Just say yes.
Good Lord. All right, Mr. Boyce, did I miss anything? Addressing the Public Works Director salary, and how we arrived at that? Is that correct?
I'm sorry, say that.
The Public Works Director salary and how we arrived?
Yeah, that's part of the job match in
Okay.
comparable cities, so it's.
Okay.
I guess what I was getting after, is there a way to, if you're going to adopt this policy, is there a way to mitigate taking a, I don't know, $12,000 hit year 1? And if so, what are the recommendations that the committee has to address that? I would be interested in hearing that,
Okay. I think I'm tracking what you're saying.
but I'm only one member.
I know.
There may be others that disagree.
Okay.
I'm
I certainly
sorry, I
agree. It
didn't.
needs to be
I was
addressed.
It
trying to.
needs to be addressed.
It needs to be
Okay.
addressed.
Okay.
Got it. That's all I need to hear.
I would, as chair of that committee, I would like to see everything that anybody has addressed.
Okay.
Bring it back to us. Sometimes we get so into the weeds that we don't see some of these things, or we think we got it figured out, but it's not really black and white. Want to know that.
Perfect.
And I guess I would add to that, I really appreciate the fact that the committee did bring this forward for us to look at, so it wasn't an action item on the agenda.
No.
Where
Agreed.
we're all going through this,
Yep.
and it's a mess, so I appreciate that.
Ms. McCall?
I've recalled my questions.
All right, go ahead.
First one was, I'm looking at the city administrator's one, and am I correct in seeing that then this is going to result in it's a minimal one, but a small cut?
Well, that was by choice. When we were trying to mitigate the impacts on this year's budget,
Okay.
we were trying to, first of all, we got rid of the step increase for 2018. And then we were trying to get salaries as close to where employees are now as we could. And, if I moved up one, it would have been a little bit larger increase, so I chose to keep it about where it was.
Okay. Well, thank you for doing that. And then the other question that I had is, as far as with comping these with, these positions with other cities, one of our most volatile positions has been the planning director, community planning director. And the proposed salary seems to be actually quite a bit on the low side as to the other cities. The other recommendations that I'm seeing are pretty level with what these other, I'm looking at the 2016 salary study exempts that's on page 8, it looks like. And two things to add to that, to with doing that comp is, it looks like we're comping this with adding in Castle Rock, Chehalis, Kalama, Kelso, Longview in that stage, and none of those cities are GMA cities. We have to go with the Growth Management Act. It adds an increased level of complexity to this job, and it also requires more political navigation and savvy of that person that's in that position, working with us, working with developers. Because we are, I guess, a border town, and we have higher requirements in a lot of ways than the cities in Cowlitz County. We're equal to the requirements that are south of us. But this person that's in this position needs to have an actual higher level of knowledge and savvy than all of these other cities, and these other cities are at higher wages. And that's part of the reason, I believe, why we've had turnover in that position, is we wind up, I think, the last 3 people that we have hired people where this was their first or their second job out of college. And because that's the salary range that we're at. And that is, I'm not saying that the planning person is more important than other jobs, but it is a gateway of our growth. And we as a political body, I can only speak for myself, but I know that's probably one of the things that I hear the most griping about, is that people want to do something and they don't feel like it's explained to them well, or it's different for this person and that person, and we really need a mature, solid person in that position. Not saying that any of the other ones weren't, because I've liked all of our last candidates, but it's a very difficult navigational job. And like I said, it's also a political one, so I don't know that that is reflective of what we're asking for when we're going to go out to recruit for that position.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or thoughts or requests before we close the workshop? All right, it's 6:52. We'll go to regular council meeting in about 8 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just realized.
Hey.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. And will the clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Jacobs?
Here.
Councilmember McCall?
Here.
Councilmember Chapman?
Here.
Councilmember Heffernan?
Present?
Councilmember Fredericks?
Still here.
Councilmember Hubbard?
Still here.
All right, and I'll be the mayor. So please make sure your microphones are on and close so everyone can hear. Where are we here? We're going to start this evening with Miss Karen Chase and Leslie, I can never say, Molman?
Yes.
Did I get it right?
You got it right.
Nailed it. All right. Come forward, please. And they've got a presentation for this evening on the Empty Bowls program, which is an amazing program.
You can't keep it.
Oh, you did this last year.
Dinner and a show.
Nice. They're so
So
nice.
this is an example of some of the pottery that will be. Ooh, the red one is good.
That's nice. She's gonna try and keep it.
I know she was. I saw that. I
was
saw
going
that.
for Mr. Chapman's.
I know. So these bowls are an example of what will be at the empty bowls that were made at Clark Community College. First of all, I'm Karen Chase. I'm the Art Commissioner for Woodland. It's so nice to meet you guys all again. I want to give you a little history of empty bowls, and then we're going to go into the procedure and what night it's going to be, and then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Open Studios, because I'm going to cover a few things while I'm here. Empty Bowls is a 25-year-old program. It was a grassroots program started to bring both money and awareness to hunger in the United States. So this has been going on for quite a while in all states of the Union. On November 9th at 6:30, we're going to have our second annual Empty Bowls. We're proud and we're amazed with the outpouring we had last year. We earned over $2,000 that went toward the Action Center here in Woodland. All monies that are made from this stay at the Action Center here in Woodland, so it helps our local people here in this area. If you go to the website of the Action Center, there will be a link so that you can buy your bowl. It's $20, and with that, you're going to get soup from our local restaurant, bread from Kalama Bread, coffee from Red Leaf Coffee. There also is going to be a silent auction where other artists from our local areas are going to be displaying their art, and that'll be going on all evening. We'll have music from a local trio here in Woodland. We're also going to be raffling off flower arrangements. The flowers were donated by Holland America. Big surprise. And then also, we're going to be also raffling off arrangements done by Garden Goddess. She's a florist here in the local area. The idea that we can join art and also hunger together is an amazing plight. And in my heart, the reason I'm doing this is that I believe there is no reason any of us should ever go hungry, no matter what the status of your income is. So I hope that this will be a successful evening. I welcome everyone to go, and I appreciate the time to be able to present this to you this evening. The last thing I'm going to talk to you about is, excuse my voice, is Open Studios. Open Studios is done by Arts of Clark County. I sit on the board also of the Arts of Clark County, and this is an annual event that we have. It's going to be on November 11th and 12th between 10 and 5, transpose those. 50 studios will be available for all public to go into. If you go onto the Arts of Clark County website, look at Open Studios, punch on that, it's going to give you 50 different artists and their locations, so you can basically map out where you want to go for the day. It's Saturday and Sunday. It's a great way to spend the day. You get to go in, talk to the artist about how they make it, and they do sell directly to the public. So the prices are a little bit better, and also it's right around Christmas time, which is very nice. I want to give benefit to not only the Action Center here in Woodland for Empty Bowls today, but also Arts of Clark County, the Art Commission, Woodland High School, and Clark College. It's been a huge success already, and I hope it continues as an annual event here in Woodland. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And can you just give me the date? Is it this coming up Monday? Is that what you said?
November 9th.
November, I missed that
November
part. Okay.
Sorry,
There you
and
go.
my
No,
voice
you're fine.
isn't the best.
At 6:30.
I just heard Monday.
Yeah,
Okay.
6:30.
High school. At the high school.
At the Woodland High School.
And buy your tickets early, because
gonna
I
say.
waited till like 2 days ahead of time last time, and you were sold out. And luckily, I was able to just still make a donation, and thanks to Miss Deanna Holland.
I got a
Mrs.
bowl.
I still got a bowl.
That's awesome. Well, we have more bowls made this year, so
Nice.
hopefully we're hoping for more support,
Okay,
for
I'm gonna
sure.
turn it
So
over to
I'm just
Leslie.
going to take just a few minutes. I'm representing Woodland Action. My name's Leslie Molman, and I'm a board member. Been a board member since 2014. And I think what we're going to do is go ahead and play the Empty Bowls video real quick for everyone in the room. So just to kind of go from that, we just want to thank everybody. We know that the city has been a big supporter of Woodland Action. But something that, to note, when I first started on the board in 2014, we had about 400 households we would serve per month. And now, this year, in 2017, we've capped like 850 people, some of the months, households. That's households, that's not individuals. And so, when you think about that, and we recently had a board workshop where we said, you know, what would our community look like without Woodland Action? And really, it would be very, very, it would be really sad, because what we contribute to the community is huge. And so that's why we, born out of that, we have a new vision, which is reducing the impact of poverty in our community. And we do that several ways. One way is through our food bank. Another way is through our emergency supplies, which you guys have been wonderful of supporting. And we've been reaching a lot of people in transition with that. We also reach people through our new program that we just got funding from Kaiser, which is our employment navigation program that's going to be up and running January 1st. We're going to have 8 computers and an employment navigator at the Woodland Action Center to help people. We're partnering with Goodwill and WorkSource to come and do classes for individuals, because we believe there's jobs out there, but there's barriers to employment with the people we serve. They don't always keep a job, and so we are going to help them build the skills that they need to keep a job and maintain it, because we feel like that's part of our mission to reduce poverty's impact into the community. So with that being said, we would like everybody to support us, because we couldn't do it without us, this community. So thanks. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Leslie. Appreciate that. Ms. Chase, thank you for coming out this evening. Do you want your bowls back?
Yeah.
I wasn't going to say anything, but we're being videotaped, and we got the camera in the sky. They would have seen me take it at the end of the night.
I'll be looking for that one.
Yes. Yeah, I did,
Oh,
yes.
that's cool.
Very nice.
Oh, that's neat, yes.
My family and I were able to attend last year, and it was amazing food, wonderful company, great music. It was just a fantastic evening. So if everyone is able to go, it's a fantastic event, well worth the money and some.
All right. Thank you for coming out tonight, ladies. I appreciate it. All right. Moving on to the next part of our agenda, I've got a presentation this evening. If I can get Angus, Will, and Noah up here, please. Make sure I got everybody in line. I just want to take a moment and highlight these 3 young men for the wonderful job that they've done over at the Guile Claddy Centennial Orchard. If anyone has had an opportunity to drive by over there, they just opened it up. I know Ms. Humberg was there a few weeks ago. They took a piece of land and partnering with the port, that the port had purchased some old homestead over out on the west side of town. So these young men partnered with the port and were able to save some pretty ancient trees in our community that provide fruit to family that used to own the homestead there. So if anyone has had an opportunity to drive by there, we have a big, beautiful sign. I wish I had some photos, and I didn't prepare for that one. Some signs, some benches, walking trail. There's also some heritage, I call them heritage markers, but heritage information posts along that trail as well. These 3 young men did this as a Eagle Scout project. Although I was told you haven't quite achieved that status yet, but you're like this far away. Is that correct? Yes, so I'm a little bit early, but that's okay. I have high hopes and expectations that those will be completed soon. Where's there he is right back there. Making sure that is achieved. But we appreciate all the hard work. I know you spent your entire summer working on this project, and the hard work that went into that. So it's very important, and the community will be able to enjoy that area of town for years to come. I believe Ms. Humberg said that it's so beautiful you could probably have a wedding there. So they did a beautiful job out there, and I'm very pleased, and I appreciate the family for coming out this evening to help recognize these young men for the hard work that they've done. I know it wasn't an easy feat. It takes a long time to to get to this position. And in my research, I've noticed that there's quite a few prominent men over the last few 100 years or so that have made it to exceptional status, including president, senator, including one of our state representatives. So I have expectations and high hopes that we'll be seeing you in your later years after college, and probably sitting here and booting me out of my own seat. So I appreciate your hard work. So I've got a little something for you this evening. Will, there's that. Love your name, by the way. That's good stuff right there. Noah, for you. And I'm going to hold on to this one real quick from Angus. In grateful appreciation of your service to the City of Woodland through your Eagle Scout Project 2017. So I'll give that to you there. Let's give these young men a round of applause for their community. And, absolutely. Absolutely. Nice job. I'm going to take things over real quick here, too. Okay, nice job. I appreciate everything you guys did that way. Hang on, real quick. Who's got the cameras? There we go. Of course I'm going to get in on it.
If I slouch, then I'm not.
Is it the scout
Let's
master?
bring the master,
Yeah,
master
okay.
up here as
Oh,
well.
Matt is- Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, all of you. Yeah. Oh, is it really? Wow.
Yeah, what?
All right. Very good. Look over there at Mr. Boyce for me real quick. Who's Paul?
Yeah, whose policy is?
His own personal policy. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Make sure you, we did bring some sweets out, so there's some stuff out on the back table for everyone here to enjoy. But that was, we don't do that every night. That was in celebration of these young men. It's not much, but it's just something fun that we get to do every once in a while, so I appreciate you all coming out tonight. Mr. Rep. Yes. Please step forward. You're my guy, aren't you, tonight for this? Yeah. Yes, okay. Are you going to give a speech? Oh, I thought maybe you had something else there.
I'm just
Oh, goodness, we're all in trouble now.
keeping track of you,
Just
Mayor, making sure you're on track.
on time. Well, you know what they say, you give a politician a mic and we're all going to be here for a long time. So, I've got my microphone. Was that a big sigh in the back? All right. Make a Difference Day is October 28th, 2017, which is something that we do every year. And Dennis puts in a lot of hours along with some of his folks in his office to coordinate that effort to help clean up our town. So I've got a proclamation here for you today. Whereas serious social problems concern our nation and threaten its future, and whereas connection with others and working together through volunteer service can bridge differences that separate people and help solve serious social problems. And whereas we, the American people, have a strong tradition of I can't say this word.
Philanthropy.
Thank you very much. And volunteerism. And whereas USA Weekend Magazine and its affiliate newspapers and the Points of Light Foundation and its affiliate volunteer centers have joined together to promote an annual National Day of Doing Good that celebrates and strengthens the spirit of volunteer service. And whereas millions of self-sacrificing individuals touch and enhance the lives of millions of National Make a Difference Day by giving where there is a need, rebuilding what has been torn down, teaching where there is a desire to learn, and inspiring those who may have lost hope. And whereas volunteer service is an investment in the future we all must share, and whereas the Woodland School District and the City of Woodland have joined together to promote and nurture an annual Make a Difference Day in the City of Woodland, and environs, is that right? Everything's running together on me tonight here. I should have brought my glasses. I'm trying to do this by Braille. No, okay, there we go. Now therefore, I, Mayor William A. Finn, in consultation with the Woodland City Council and Woodland School District, do hereby proclaim October 28th, 2017 as Make a Difference Day in the City of Woodland, and urge all citizens to support and observe this day by connecting with friends, fellow employees, and relatives, and with religious, school, and civic groups to engage in projects that make a difference and which benefit our community. Dated this 16th day of October 2017. Thank you very much for all your hard work. I don't wear my glasses because I think they make me look too old. It's a vanity thing.
The only other thing I was going to say is
Yes.
we do
Thanks for
partner with
those.
the high school, and it's the senior projects for.
Oh, it's part of that.
Part
Gotcha.
of the senior projects. So
Awesome.
we have a bigger group this year than we've had in years. We
Good.
have like 12 or 13 kids. Usually we have 4 to 6.
The
That's awesome.
The beautiful computer room Is it blue? Still blue?
It is blue.
I helped paint that last year during this day. Yes, with some high schoolers.
We have flooring now.
Oh, good. There's a lot of wonderful things that Dennis helped coordinate, and that's one of them. So, all through the city, not just out on the city streets raking up leaves and trimming some trees. So it's amazing. It's a great program, and I appreciate all your hard work putting into it. Thank you very much. All right.
What's the time? What's the time and place that people need to show up?
It will be October 28th. We meet in the Commons at 8 o'clock. We try to get out by 9 o'clock. It's a little bit of a organized chaos that day because we usually have between 15 and 20 projects. We always start with the older folks and the handicapped folks first, and then we go to some city projects, and then we go to other projects that folks have brought to us. And it's worked with all the churches. We go to the churches, we have them bring us projects, and then they also bring people and join in and help. So it's really a pretty cool day. I've been doing it for probably 25 plus years. It's pretty neat deal. So, all right.
Thank you, Dennis.
Yes, thank you.
Appreciate it.
And usually aren't there donuts and coffee at the start, and then there's Burgerville lunch at the end? So you do get fed, and you guys have some of the tools, but if they want to bring tools, it's welcome.
Yep. And like I say, about 9 o'clock to about noon or 1 o'clock is how long it lasts. So. Okay.
I'm just trying to get you some more people.
Yes, absolutely. Much needed help. I think we ran out of hands last year. All right, moving on down the agenda. Citizen communications for items not on the agenda. And I have Mr. Scott Perry. Are you still here? Oh, there you are. 5 minutes. 5 minutes, Mr. Perry.
Oh, hey, I just got short.
Oh, do I need to start the timer?
Well, you know, I'm boycotting the NFL, so I figured I might as well come here.
Oh, good Lord. Awesome. I'm starting the clock.
Anyway, Scott Perry, 180 South Beacon Road, here in Woodland. First of all, I'd like to say that today I went out on my annual trip around the lake. My boat gets out about once a year, and today happened to be the day. I figured it's time. And I'm real happy to report that the milfoil is really looking sick. I went all the way down to the far end, and usually you can't get down in that area. There was none on top of the water, and I was able to go most of the way. Gets pretty shallow this time of year down there no matter what, but yeah, I was really, really glad to see the results that we're having from that. I think it's fabulous. The other issue I had, just briefly, I've been following this rezoning of 1350 Glenwood and going to the Planning Commission meetings. The last one that I was at, my understanding was, and this is also verified in the DRC report, Planning Commission reviewed the proposed rezone docket at the regular meeting. They tabled the item until October 17th, asking for additional information. A full staff report will be provided to the Planning Commission at the August meeting. I'm also aware that there hadn't been a meeting since then, and consequently, I couldn't understand when there were several issues that were being discussed. One was some application issues and whether the application was complete and so forth. Another was that you just finished a new comprehensive plan, and the Planning Commission was really questioning whether or not they should be taking this up that soon. There is an annual review of the comp plan, but there's a schedule that you're supposed to follow as to when you apply and when that hearing is for the annual review. And then the fourth consideration was they felt they should be focusing on some of the directions that you had given them after the comprehensive plan was approved. And so that's why they decided to table this. So I was quite surprised when I got a notice here that we have a hearing coming up on Thursday, public hearing on the issue. So I guess my question is, with no meetings, Amanda's been gone, consequently I can't see how you got a staff report, and my real question is, who called this meeting? Thank you.
Mr. Perry, you've sat out here for a while. You know council's not going to answer, but I'll answer. I called the meeting because we haven't had one in a while. We do have an interim, I must say Public Works Director, interim community development director right now that we're contracting out with. We were trying to attempt to have a special meeting here a few weeks ago just to address the one issue and decided that we'd hold off because he wasn't quite prepared yet because he is still new on. You're speaking specifically to the one.
Yeah, no, I understand we need to have the planning commission meetings. The one that I'm questioning is the public hearing on that issue, in that planning hadn't even decided if they were going to address that issue.
Okay, I'm tracking. I believe that was Mr., I'm not trying to pass the buck here.
Thank you.
Brad's, I'm still trying to answer your question. Hold on. God.
So rare.
Hold on. I'm trying to be helpful here. It's one of the boxes that have to be checked in order to accept public, you can stop me if I'm wrong here, to accept public comment before action can be taken by the Planning Commission. So that's why it's happening. Mr. Boyce?
I believe that's accurate, and I'd have to refer to the...
I believe that's correct too. It's a public hearing for rezone application, even for a recommendation from the Planning Commission.
So that has to happen before a recommendation can be given by Planning Commission, is that correct? Okay.
Well, I think the real question was that the Planning Commission was questioning whether it was appropriate for them to even be hearing it at this point. I think they tabled it in order to have that discussion at a prior meeting. So my impression at the time was that
it wasn't coming back forward?
Didn't intend to go forward with it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. You raised some questions here, as you always do. Drop the bomb in the middle of the floor and walk away. I think I'm tracking what he's asking. Yes.
Just to be clear, though, on this, the Planning Commission is its own body. It has its own rules. It is separate from the council. I just want to make sure that we're all clear about that.
Okay. Ms. McCall.
I'll go ahead and continue to reiterate that they are a commission that reports to us, although they are a separate commission. They are a commission that reports to us. They are not a standalone committee that does planning and then decides what they want to do and comes to us. We set the policy, and we should be asking them what we want them to look at and then having them come back to us.
Okay. Thank you. So, Mr. Perry, I guess where are you? I would encourage you to attend that meeting and voice your same concerns at this point. Is that an accurate statement? Okay. Thank you.
Presumably, folks will have an opportunity at some point at a city council meeting to voice their issues on.
Yeah, it's not the end all. It's not the buck does not stop there. It's going to continue up this way. Ms. McCall.
And while you're on that topic, I have a note to not forget to mention. There is a document on the Planning Commission hearing meeting for Thursday that's on how they're going to operate and how they're going to present things to us. And I've never seen it. I would think that it would come through us to have us take a look at if that's how we want them to do it prior to them approving.
Okay. Thank you for that note.
I haven't read it, but my assumption is that the Planning Commission is attempting to adopt council or commission rules of procedure that is very similar to ours, and it's my understanding that under state law that they have the ability to be able to do that without council approval unless council wants to get involved with that. Is there an understanding on that? I was under the impression that the planning commission was allowed to adopt their own rules of procedure.
Can I clarify? There's specific sections in it, because I've read it, there's specific sections in it that clarify how things are going to move through them to us and when they can initiate process on things. And that piece of it should be coming to us first. But the other portion of what you were saying of the operating pieces, I am 110% in favor of it, and we're past due on that, and I'm happy that they're moving forward with that action. I just do think that we should be a part of that, because it's stating how things are going to flow through the city. And we should decide how it flows through the city, or at least have input on it before they approve it.
Okay. We will address that. All right. Anyone else in the gallery for items not on the agenda that failed to sign up? I know I took the papers and there's some folks that came in late. Now's your opportunity to step forward. All right. I have no one signed up for items on the agenda. Is there anyone here that would like to speak to items on the agenda this evening that did not have an opportunity to sign up? All right. And moving on to, the chair will accept a motion to approve the agenda.
Move to approve?
Second?
Moved by Councilmember Humberg, seconded by Councilmember McCall. Will the clerk please take the vote?
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Jacobs.
Aye.
Councilmember Heffernan.
Aye.
Councilmember McCall.
Aye.
Councilmember Humber.
Aye.
All right, moving into, what time is it? It's 7:31. Moving into a public hearing for the CDBG 2018 projects. For those individuals in the gallery who failed to sign up at the door, now's your opportunity to step forward and speak to that.
Would you like me to give a summary about what it is?
That would be lovely.
Okay.
Sure. So,
I'm going to stop you real quick because I was going to introduce you after we moved on, but since you're starting to speak, this is our new Public Works Director, Miss Tracy Coleman. This is her first meeting. We appreciate her being here, so welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So just in summary, we apply for a community development block grant every year, and in that block grant, it's through Clark County. We can do improvements to our city. Some of the improvements are in the low-income areas, and other improvements are done outside of the low-income areas. And so we had a meeting on October 2nd and asked for a public hearing for some ideas, and we didn't really get any feedback. So we, Dennis and I, and Jody, some others, have scouted through the city, and we've decided that there's some great opportunity to put in some handicap access ramps. We identified 15 locations throughout the city that we could use these funds for. And then there's also some sidewalk improvements that we saw that could be done in some of the lower income areas. So we're proposing to fill out this grant application to do those improvements.
Thank you, Ms. Coleman.
You're welcome.
So is there anyone else that would like to step forward now that you have a little bit more information to speak to the 2018 CDBG projects? All right, it's 7:33. All right, moving on to reports of city officers. Oh, that's not council, city officers. That's me? Well, it's on the front page. There we go. There we go. There I am. And look at, I've got all my notes tonight. I've got all my notes. And no, I have not. Yes, all right. Well, I'll go first. Planning Commission update for council. And I'm not sure, we may need Mr. Eling's input on this one a little bit, but I've had a conversation with property owner that was attempting to create a private gun range on his property. And we spoke here a couple weeks back, a week or so ago, and he's asked that the item be dropped and no longer considered. So moving forward with that, I know that this body had asked for a subject matter expert to come forward to speak about gun ranges and the building of them and what was required. And then council had also asked for some improvements on the policy itself. So at this point, with no one trying to erect a private gun range on their property, how do we proceed with this, if at all?
There's probably really no urgency for it at this point.
Okay.
There's no application pending. It may be something that the council wants to consider at some point in the future, just to make clear what the policy is, but, yeah, we're certainly not there at this point. If we have like more people applying to do it, it probably makes sense to do so, but the fact that our ordinance is somewhat unclear is, something that probably needs to be addressed in the future.
Okay, gotcha. All right, questions on that, Ms. McCall?
My question on that is, I'm actually 110% against having them in residential areas, but our code does not address having them in commercial areas either. And I would like to move forward with seeing what we can put in the code so that we can allow it in commercial areas or industrial areas, because I think that would be a great business for somebody to start.
Okay.
And I think there's high interest in it.
I agree.
Mr. Fredericks?
I would just like to see the language changed. I agree. I think it's something that we need to address. The word bona fide comes to mind. It's just, what is bona fide? Whose interpretation is? So I think it is something that should be looked at, and recommendations should be made to make some changes to the existing ordinance. But there's no sense of urgency in moving the existing one forward. Whatever we need to do there is I'm fine with.
Okay.
Yeah, part of the analysis has to be, and the reason maybe for bringing someone that has expertise in the area is that, state law, the state provision for firearms preempts all local control of firearm regulations under both U.S. Constitution, our own Constitution, on being able to keep and bear arms. But there is a provision in the law that says that for health and public safety, that cities and counties can adopt rules. So that's probably where we ought to go, because to have a basis that's defendable for an ordinance that we have to, I think, make findings of fact as to, what's safe and unsafe, and what, makes sense in that regard. So that's where I think you got to go.
I'm sorry, I got to ask this question. I know this is irritating, but you lose me on some of this sometimes, where we can't say, well, we can't effectively zone to, prevent somebody from growing marijuana in their home, but we can zone for the gun issue. It just seems odd to me that you can't under one area, but you can under another area.
The authority is explicit in the statute,
and the other
marijuana
statute is gray.
It's the opposite. Either it's explicitly, denied, or it's, preempted the area. Same thing like comes to us in the area of fireworks, is gambling, all these different things. The state says they preempt it, but then they say, well, not completely, and then don't really kind of, stake out what is in and what's out. So it ends up being what you and I like to talk about, gray areas.
Yeah, perfect. Okay.
Just have to navigate those.
Mrs. Heffernan?
It's my understanding that there is currently a business within city limits that has a ballistic testing facility as part of their company. And so I know that's not a commercial gun range, but they obviously were able to build that when they put their company in. So our ordinance that doesn't address the one, but we have a ballistic testing
The
building.
difference is that we did go out and inspect that. We did send some folks out there. The difference with that is not a firearm. It's not movable. It doesn't have, and Mr. Boyce, I'll let you jump in on this one. Go ahead.
Right, so we sent our police chief out to take a look. And basically, it's a set piece of equipment. It does, discharge a bullet to test parts. But again, this may be part of our code that we need to look at and clean up, because there's depending how you look at it, it's not really a shooting range, but there is a projectile being fired. it's one of those gray areas we may need to address.
So you say
going forward.
you sent the chief out, is that this recently, or when this facility was being built?
Well, I'm not sure what happened when it was built, because that was before my time, but
Okay.
recently we had Chief Kelly go out a couple months ago.
Yeah, it's been a while. It was identified through a citizen that it was out there. So we acted upon that and went out to inspect it, and it's I don't know how much we can say about the business, but is it a government business of some sort? Or they've got government contracts. So it took some finesse to get him even on the property, so.
But it was
Yeah.
permitted and inspected.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
So it sounds like that you'd like that addressed as well, or open up the conversation to have, it looks like
Well,
that
I
we do
don't-
have some gray area.
I
Sorry.
don't want anything addressed
Okay.
with them, I think that.
No, not with them,
they're
just in
great, but-
general.
But obviously, we don't have an ordinance, but there has been something built, and so yes, we definitely do need to make sure we get everything in black and white, so there's no gray.
So, okay. Any other questions on that? Okay, great. I've got a whole list of things here. Public Works Director, sure I stole my thunder on that one, welcome again. I did, and with Leslie here, and I don't know if Karen's still here, if she's already left. I can't see back there, but I don't think she is. I attended a meeting at the primary school last week, and in reference to the program that these ladies have brought forward this evening, and I know that I was actually shocked to see the data that was brought forward during the presentation with the principal there. Our primary school is a preschool through first grade, and I was actually blown away by the amount of children that are on the free and reduced lunch program, the children that are showing up to school that have not had any food, and that are being sent home with food to make that is easy enough for them at first grade. I have a first grader, so it was eye-opening for me that they're sending food home for them that they're able to make, because whether mom and dad are working or they're just home by themselves for a while and there's just not enough food in the house. So one thing I'm going to be doing to address that is, not that I can address that myself, but start asking for a quarterly report from the school district for each building within the city limits, so council has a better understanding of what is actually happening out there. I think that as a parent, I haven't been at that facility in so long. I've got two high schoolers, so going back there, I think I forgot that the building existed, because I didn't have a need to go there anymore, except to on Dr. Seuss Day to read to the children. So it was just eye-opening to me, which led to some more questions on my end of what exactly is happening in our school district and what are the needs of our children within our community. So I'll be reaching out to the school district to start providing a report to council, so when decisions need to be made, you can take all that into consideration as well. I was blown away, and I appreciate all the wonderful work that you do over there. You've started that program, and I don't know the name of the program. My wife does.
Community Resource Center.
Community Resource Center.
FCRC.
So Leslie's in charge of food pantries at each school, along with making sure that children have clothing and just all the things that they need housing to make sure that they're successful through their educational experience. So that I appreciate everything that you do. Thank you for that. So council should expect some stuff coming forward at some point from me. Sip and Stroll was on Thursday with our Downtown Woodland Revitalization grant that we had down there. Wonderful. I just did some thank you notes while I was up here for Erica Rodman, Michael Watts over at Spruce, and also Jennifer Keene, the port director. The three of them put on, plus all the others, I'm sure I'm missing some, but I know that they were the three instrumental ones that were putting that on. They cleaned up some of our vacant buildings in downtown. They cleaned them up. And then open them up on Thursday evening for folks to come down and hopefully, and I believe that we may have rented one of them, I think we have, which was the point of this, and getting folks out there. It was amazing to me to see how many people were out there on foot, and the children that were out there, and they had food and wine and beer and sodas and waters and all these, and music. The folks that came out for the music and all the different locations, it was just, when I came out of the Grange, I know I saw you there, when I came out of the Grange, it was nice to look up Davidson and see all these people there, and I know that this is the point of what we're trying to accomplish here. And I've heard so many wonderful things about that program, and I think that they're probably going to plan another one for the summertime. But it was just wonderful to see everybody out there, and I don't know how many times I've heard I didn't realize that business even existed. So we got some foot traffic down there for them, and it was very successful, and very proud of those folks. Also attended the League of Women Voters yesterday. Again, can't say thank you enough to them. They had 6 folks that are running for public office here and so for city council that were there. Some great questions were asked, great answers were given. So I appreciate everyone who participated in that, and the League of Women Voters for putting that on here in the city of Woodland, so folks can get out. And I know that KLTV was here filming. I don't know when that's going to happen, but when it's going to air. But I encourage everyone to take a look. Geez, I did a lot over the last week. Sorry, guys. Attended a fundraiser for the girls' soccer team over at the high school, which was nice. I ran into Mr. Fredericks there with his wife, also attending the fundraiser. We were a little bit naughty. We snuck into the kitchen and took a selfie with the girls that were back there cooking, so that was fun. I was a little bit of an instigator. I can't sit still very much, so I didn't want to watch the movie all the way through as a date night. So I left my wife sitting at the table. I'm a horrible person, but I had to get up and stretch. So hopefully they raised a lot of money for that. I'm not quite sure how much they've raised it. I haven't heard, but good for them for doing that. I was over at the high school. It was a wonderful time. Also attended a meet and greet over at the Oak Tree with 2 candidates for city council. Not that I'm advocating for city council, but I just wanted to highlight the Oak Tree and the great job that they put on there. I had no idea that I must just live under a rock or just keep my head down when I'm within the city trying to work. I had no idea that they did such amazing parties there. I don't know if anyone has been to. I've been to business chamber luncheons, but they had table ends out. They had full-on buffet, so I encourage everyone to go to, and it was wonderful food. It was just great. So I encourage anyone that's having a big party to stop by the Oak Tree and talk to them as well. I think that's all I have. Questions? It's been my social calendar was very full this week.
Just, if you'd like to know, we raised over $800.
Oh, for the Sip and Stroll. Nice.
And on Tuesday, we will, of all of the businesses that were open, their names will go in a hat, and at the chamber meeting on Tuesday, they'll pull the name out that will get that $800 to work on their facade, so they can have it power washed or paint windows or whatever they choose to do. That's pretty
Awesome.
exciting.
That is exciting. That's good stuff. And I have one more to go along with Mr. Perry, if he's still here. Got one more item that he spoke to about the lake and the milfoil treatment. I received an email from Mike Curry this morning talking about how pleased he was and thanking the city for, he knows that it was a large expense to go out there and treat the lake, and I want to say it was $24,000 that city council gave them to treat the lake. It hasn't been treated in 20 years, and they truly appreciate it, and the treatment was extremely successful. So just to follow up on what Mr. Perry was saying as well, Mike Curry, who lives on the lake as well, has noticed it and is very appreciative of council supplying the funds to have that taken care of. So I told him that I'd pass that on to you. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so I've also walked around the lake, and it's just dying and floating to the bottom. But all the little fish that you saw before are all still there. The natural grasses, they're still there. So the only thing that I see going away is the bad stuff we wanted to go away. It's really exciting, and it's just so cool to be able to see down into the lake. We haven't been able to do that for a really long time, so.
Thank you, Lake Committee. If you could pass that on, Mr. Perry. Yes, and you as well. Thank you very much. Ms. Coleman, I believe that you'll attend those meetings as well, so thank you very much. Yes.
You're welcome.
All right. Mr. Boyce.
Okay, I had a few things to report on. First of all, as you all remember, we had the L&I settlement, labor and industry settlement with the state regarding infractions at the wastewater treatment plant. We're implementing our portion of the settlement deal. We have 4 individuals going through 30-hour OSHA training this week here in the council chambers. That's one of the requirements. We've also engaged with an industrial hygienist who is going through all of our safety programs, reviewing them. We'll make recommendations on changes and implement employee training when that is complete. So that's moving forward. Also, the Salary Commission has been meeting to discuss elected official salaries. I believe they've come to some consensus. They've scheduled a public hearing on the item for November 3rd at 6 p.m. in this room. So we'll be attempting to get the word out on that. And we'll be putting on our website and advertising as much as possible what their recommendations are. They haven't taken a formal vote, but they have some consensus, and they will take action after they get public input. We're also advertising for the Community Development Director position. That's scheduled to close on October 25th. We've had a few applications trickle in thus far, so we're hoping, a groundswell at the end. And the curb grant that was part of the Sip and Stroll the other night, or the Open Up event, we gained some input at the Grange. From what I understand, it was a great showing. I was at the Grange early, not later, but there were a lot of people out, and it was pretty amazing considering the weather and everything else. So it was a good event. I also wanted to report at the last meeting we talked about the Downtown Revitalization Board and the motion they had made about the consultant for the curb grant. I attended the last meeting. They had rescinded that motion, and it was, I believe it was a unanimous vote. So that's good. And the quarterly curb grant was turned in today, so we're moving forward. We're near completion of the grant, so the next couple months will be eventful. So we'll be trying to distribute information, make sure everyone is excited about this. And when it all comes together, we'll have to talk about with City Council how we put some funds together to promote facade projects in the downtown area. I'm hoping there are some, we're not ready for this cycle, but we're hoping there are some CDBG funds that may become available where we could set up something like a revolving loan. So we could have a very low interest loan for 1% or somewhere in that range. Loan it out to the business, they do their improvement, they pay it back, there's a little bit extra money for the next loan to go out. So we're looking at options how to implement some facade improvements from that grant. With that, then I just have the community events. October 23rd, special meeting for the budget workshop, the 2018 budget workshop, 7 p.m. In this room. October 24th, the AWC regional meeting in Vancouver is happening. November 3rd, we have the public hearing from the Salary Commission. November 6th, a public hearing on property tax levy for 2018. Other community events, we heard about Make a Difference Day on the 28th. Veterans Day ceremony at 2 p.m. at 100 Davidson on November 11th. And we also heard about the Empty Bowls function on November 9th at the high school. So that's my report.
Veterans at the VFW this year? Is that?
That's what
is
they're
that what I'm
planning on
hearing?
doing,
Okay.
yes.
All right, just making sure. Because I think normally they have it down at the corner by the
Yes.
fire station. Okay.
So it's not 100 Davidson.
Mr. Fredericks?
Well,
Oh, sorry.
don't change that. Let me,
We'll verify.
yeah, they have a meeting, I believe, tomorrow, so.
Okay. If we can update the.
Yeah, I'll make sure you
our
have a
list,
right
please.
address.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Fredericks?
Can we get an update on where we're at with the videotaping and of our meetings? I know, I went in there the other day, we all look like Smurfs, and we can't hear staff talking in any of the microphones. So, is there a plan to fix that?
We have been working with the provider of the software, and they have done some troubleshooting. They are, I guess, finishing that some more because we still don't have a clear answer. They're sending us a new part, which I believe we'll have installed possibly tomorrow or next week. As far as the sound, I knew we had some cutting in and out. We found a bit of this connection, and so hopefully that has resolved itself as well. We're thinking, they troubleshooted by changing out certain parts to get rid of the Smurf look, and that hasn't resolved itself, so we're hoping the new part will take care of it. If it
Wonder what
doesn't, then
color I'm wearing
we go
tonight.
back to the.
You're probably wearing yellow.
And I'm sorry, I don't recall this, but is it live streaming?
Yes.
So people can see it as it's happening.
Yes.
Okay, I thought that was the case,
So we're going to be putting out some information, and currently you can go to our homepage, and there's a direct link on there that's going to get you there. But you can also go on to a YouTube subscription and look at that to get the live stream as well.
So I'm hopeful that once the kinks are all worked out, that the city sends out a press release so the folks are aware, because many folks are not aware that we're recording this, and,
We were trying to get it dialed in before we did our press release.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Mr. Boyce or staff? Ms. McCall?
Just a comment, I don't know that any of us have actually really formally recognized what's happened over the last 6 to 8 months, and the very stellar efforts that have happened within the Public Works Department with a change in leadership and getting someone hired, and we had an interim in here, but the two people that were key, that knew the history, that kept everything going, were Dennis and Jody. And I just want to express my appreciation as a council member, because we don't realize Public Works. I mean, that's the toilets flushing, the water comes on, everything's working, there wasn't anything that broke down. Well, I'm sure there were things behind the scenes that were some real challenges of getting staffing and all those other things. And I just want to make sure that you know how grateful that we are, because I know that you did a lot of extra hours.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. Anything else? All right, and Chair will accept a motion to approve the consent items.
Move to approve?
Second?
Moved by Councilmember Humberg, seconded by Councilmember Heffernan. Will the clerk please take the vote?
Councilmember McCall?
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman?
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks?
Aye.
Councilmember Heffernan,
Aye.
Councilmember Jacobs?
Aye.
Councilmember Humber?
Aye.
All right, moving on to action items. Action item D, authorize 2018 CDBG project for grant application.
Move to approve?
Second?
Moved by Councilmember Humberg, seconded by Councilmember McCall. Councilmember Humberg.
I think it's a great idea. I know that there are sidewalks that need to be replaced, but I like the idea of the ramps as well. So if someone is trouble walking or wheelchair or pushing a stroller, they can get on the sidewalk easily. So I would like to see this go forward.
Ms. McCall.
I agree with what Susan said.
All right, further discussion? Mr. Fredericks.
So if we wanted to put a sidewalk across a state route, there are a lot of people who...
You mean crosswalk?
What did I say?
Sidewalk.
Sidewalk across the state route. Who would ever notice? How about a crosswalk? There are lots of folks who are crossing Lewis River Road at Hillshire. We have
Yes.
low-income, I don't know if that's affordable homes on Hillshire, and also across the way on the other side of Lewis River Road. So there's a lot of pedestrian foot traffic there. They don't go to the roundabout and go around the church the way it's designed over there. And so I'm wondering if that is a spot for that. And we keep talking about the park, that we're creating all kinds of congestion over there.
So the funds have to go to either low-income or non-commercial areas.
Okay?
And so we are limited on where we can use the funds.
Okay.
We can't use the funds on a state route or highway or a commercial area.
Well, I guess
So-
that explains that.
Yes, and so it's very unfortunate because we've identified quite a few locations that we'd really like to improve the sidewalks. And this area that you're talking about over there by the roundabout is one of those areas, and I actually walked it myself. So we'll try to come up with some ideas of how to put a sidewalk in there, how to cross some certain roads. Because, there's some pinch points in there for walking for kids, crossing the roads that you don't want them to, but you don't have a choice at this point. The answer to everything when it comes to this is obviously if we have the funds, we can do it, but where do we get the funds? And the funds that we do receive are limited.
Right.
So it used to be that Battleground was entirely a low-income area. And fortunately, we are not anymore. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, how do you get the money to make those improvements when you're already limited on the budget? So that's something that I can look into, and we try to figure that out as we go.
Okay.
Oh, you were, I was waiting. Nope, nothing?
I don't know.
Okay, Mrs. Heffernan.
We have a transportation improvement plan,
Mhm,
6
TID.
years, right. Do sidewalks, crosswalks, does that play into that, or does it have to be for vehicles, only for vehicle crossings?
They also are limited, and the majority of those funds are limited to the size of the city. And one of the things that, when I interviewed, I realized that they had some funds available, for instance, to change all the streetlights out to LED. The limited number of residents is 5,000, and we have exceeded
6,035.
that. So unfortunately, if we can,
Thirty.
like, maybe get rid of 1,000 residents, no. No, I'm being sarcastic. But there are, I have looked into that, and I have worked with the TIB in the past in previous positions. So, you know, the key is, how do you get past all the little hiccups along the way that say, well, you can only have 5,000 residents, or, oh, you have to be in a low-income district? Those are great questions, and we're not sure if we have answers to them yet, but something that, like I said, that we'll look into and see anything that we can do to get the funds that we can.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, will the clerk please take the vote on action item D, authorize 2018 CDBG project for grant application.
Councilmember Fredericks?
Aye.
Councilmember Jacobs?
Aye.
Councilmember Heffernan,
Aye.
Councilmember McCall?
Aye.
Councilmember Humbert?
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman?
Aye.
All right, action item D has passed. The chair will accept a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 8 o'clock. Make sure you grab some snacks on your way out. On the back there.
Yep. My daughter's on it.
So what this is, I don't think you've ever been, have you ever been to
Oh, I've been to some of the